In February 1959, 9 experienced hikers were found dead in the Ural Mountains. At first, it looked like exposure. Then, investigators noticed something strange. The tent had been cut open from the inside. No signs of a fight, no clear tracks of another group, just footprints leading into the freezing dark. Some of the bodies were barely dressed. 3 had massive internal injuries. 1 was missing her tongue. The official explanation was simple, but the evidence wasn't. The group was led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. They weren't amateurs. Most were certified Grade 2 hikers, the highest qualification available in the Soviet Union at the time. They had planned a winter expedition across the northern Ural Mountains, aiming to reach Mount Otorten. Their final journal entry was written on February 1st. After that, nothing. When they failed to send a telegram confirming their return, search teams were organized. Weeks later, rescuers located the campsite. The tent was partially collapsed under snow, but it hadn't been destroyed from outside. It had been sliced open from within. That detail changed everything. The first 2 bodies were found beneath a cedar tree about 1.5 kilometers from the tent. They were barefoot, dressed only in underwear. They had attempted to build a fire. Branches were broken high up the tree, suggesting someone had climbed it, possibly to look back toward the camp. 3 more bodies were discovered between the tree and the tent. Their positions indicated they were trying to return. They didn't make it. Months later, when the snow began to melt, the remaining 4 were found in a ravine, buried under several meters of snow. That's when the medical reports raised serious questions. 3 of the hikers had severe internal injuries: crushed ribs, massive chest trauma, a fractured skull. But there were almost no external wounds, no deep cuts, no defensive injuries. Investigators noted that the force required to cause such trauma was comparable to a car crash. One of the victims, Lyudmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue and parts of her soft tissue. At the time, rumors spread quickly, but forensic analysis later suggested that scavenging animals and decomposition in a stream could explain the missing tissue. Even so, the internal injuries remained difficult to explain. The official Soviet conclusion stated that the hikers died due to an unknown compelling force. Later, the most widely accepted explanation became an avalanche. The theory suggested that a slab of snow broke loose above the tent during the night. Fearing burial, the group cut their way out and fled. In darkness, without proper clothing, disoriented and exposed, they eventually succumbed to hypothermia. On paper, it made sense, but critics pointed to several inconsistencies. The slope angle at the campsite was relatively mild. Search teams did not report obvious avalanche debris, and some footprints appeared orderly, not chaotic. For decades, these details fueled speculation. Alternative theories emerged. One suggested secret Soviet military testing in the area, possibly parachute mines or experimental weapons. Supporters of this idea pointed to reports of glowing orange spheres seen in the sky by other hikers during that period. Another theory involved infrasound, low-frequency sound waves generated by wind patterns over the mountain. Some researchers proposed that these vibrations could induce panic or irrational behavior. There were even claims of radiation detected on some clothing items, though levels were reportedly low and possibly explainable by prior occupational exposure among the students. Over time, the case became a magnet for speculation. Aliens, yetis, government cover-ups. But speculation doesn't equal evidence. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case. After a new investigation and computer simulations conducted in collaboration with researchers, officials reaffirmed the avalanche theory. More specifically, a delayed slab avalanche. The idea is that wind and snow accumulation created unstable layers above the tent. When part of that slab shifted, it could have caused enough pressure to frighten the group and damage the tent. Computer models later suggested that certain snow compression patterns could produce severe internal injuries without leaving obvious external trauma, especially if victims were pinned against hard objects. It wasn't a massive avalanche. It didn't need to be. Just enough force, just enough fear, in complete darkness, in extreme cold. Under those conditions, even small mistakes become fatal. Today, the avalanche explanation is considered the most scientifically supported theory. It accounts for the tent being cut from inside, the rapid evacuation, the hypothermia, the internal injuries. But not everyone is convinced. Some still question the lack of visible avalanche debris in early photographs. Others point to inconsistencies in the initial Soviet investigation. What remains undeniable is this: 9 experienced hikers made a decision that night to leave the safety of their tent. They left quickly, without adequate clothing, and whatever they perceived, whether natural or misunderstood, felt urgent enough to risk freezing to death. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most unsettling mountaineering tragedies of the 20th century. Not because it's supernatural, but because it shows how thin the line is between control and catastrophe. In extreme environments, small forces can become overwhelming, and sometimes the simplest explanation is still the hardest one to accept.